as we were saying, how can they can resist in ways that doesn't go out of their way to harm civilians? What the fuck are you talking about, brother? They can resist in ways that doesn't go out of their way to harm civilians. That's your assessment. See how we're having a conversation now? See how we're having a conversation all of a sudden? Yeah, protest peacefully, Hezbollah. Protest peacefully, Palestinians. As there's an ethnic cleansing campaign taking place. Protest peacefully against the ethnic cleansing campaign. Who's killed more civilians, you fucking asshole? The Israeli state or Hezbollah? Who's killed more civilians, the Israeli state or Hamas? The answer is very clear. That's why most people have no retort, no counter message when I say Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. Because it's true, like mathematically true. Yeah, protest against chattel slavery, protest against the British occupation of Ireland, protest peacefully, please. Meanwhile, I am doing peaceful protest. I'm a commentator. I'm not a militant. And yet, my travel is being restricted, and I'm currently experiencing repression for my political dissent, and you're over here justifying that. So it doesn't seem like you're in favor of peaceful protest either, jackass. Haven't you realized that you're actually justifying state repression against peaceful fucking protest when you do that? Am I offering material support to any of these state-sponsored, state-designated terrorist organizations? No, I'm not. And yet the state is engaging in repression all the same. At a certain point, you have to realize, like, wait, maybe I don't have a consistent position on this. This is not a justification of targeting civilians. You are saying they're deliberately targeting civilians, for the record. I've never justified that. If I did, I'd be defending the Israeli state because they do that as a matter of state policy, as a matter of military policy. Palestinians have peacefully protested against the state of Israel over and over again. They've been slaughtered. Anyway, we're moving on from this. We're moving on from this conversation, unless there's like new updates later down the line, but doesn't seem to be the case, right? Leave these assholes for what they are. They're just pushing your buttons to get clips. Yeah. Hezbollah right now is blowing up tanks and military installations on Lebanese soil that Israel is illegally placed. Okay? The IDF, on the other hand, are blowing up residential buildings. And its defenders in the Israeli Knesset are demanding more of that death and destruction. Who's actually defending their homeland? Who's actually engaging in colonial conquest? The answer is Israel. Israel is the wrong party here. And the Lebanese population, including the armed military, the armed paramilitary organization, Hezbollah, that has its own political party within the Lebanese parliament as well, is the wronged party here. And it's really funny that you demand state repression and justify it for a fucking political commentator because you disagree with it, while simultaneously making it seem as though I'm engaging in an act of terrorism. Doesn't need to be peaceful necessarily, but targeting civilians will get you designated as a terrorist group. Do you not agree? No, I don't agree. The American government calls everyone a fucking terrorist if they don't agree with their ultimate goals of liberation, okay? The fuck are you talking about? And the Israeli government does the same, and the American government gets their notes from the Israeli government. Do you know how many fucking people that Israel has killed? Just thinkers, writers, poets, doctors, activists, organizers that happen to be Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Muslims, and called them terrorists? The whole point of free expression is so we can have a conversation about the silly designation. Hezbollah was not prescribed as a terrorist organization until recently in the British by the British government, as a matter of fact. Hezbollah and Hamas are not prescribed as terrorist organizations in most of the planet, but it doesn't matter because we live in the Western world and we only care about what America has decided or what Israel has decided is a terrorist organization. Nelson Mandela was on the terrorism watch list until 2008. Do you think he's a terrorist? Perhaps this is a good way to comprehend that the terrorism designation is an unhelpful one and an intentionally vague one, specifically. Oh, here we go. Here's another American terrorist right here, Representative Josh Gottheimer. This from the guy who said Hamas 1,000 times better than Israel after Hamas attempted to exterminate the Jews. Your Nazi detector might be broken, Hasan. The Nazi government considered all Jews to be terrorists. Do you agree with that designation? Or do you have a separate position on this? Do you have a different position on this? Of course, powerful entities that seek to wipe out entire populations will declare all of those populations to be engaging in an act of terror. Do you agree with that? Would you make this assessment? If a government designated Israel as a terrorist organization to ban people for supporting Israel, that would be a fair comparison to make. Yeah, that hasn't happened, unfortunately, with the exception of North Korea. That would be truthful. Let's move beyond state designations. Let's move beyond the legal framework because we're having a conversation about opposing the legal framework. Okay? Let's have a conversation about whether you think it's an appropriate thing to do. Yes, also, the terrorism designation has no standing in international law anyway. Israel's a fucking apartheid ethno-state that's done a genocide and continuing to expand militarily into Lebanon, Syria, numerous other countries. That has destabilized the entire global energy markets because it wanted to fucking kill Iranians and destabilize Iran and destroy Iran, a country with 93 million people. Oh, yeah. Israel just carried out a massacre in Tyre, completely demolishing 3 buildings. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and fucking say that the people who are fighting back against this are wrong to do so. They're not. They're not wrong to do so. I don't care if the fucking British government considers that to be offensive. The fuck do you mean? Of course they're going to fight back against this. What are you talking about? The problem here is you can't put yourself in the shoes of people who used to live in those buildings. You think they deserved it. I don't. Okay? That's the difference. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who also think that these people kind of deserve it or they don't even think about this. If you had any shame, if you had any fucking moral compass, you would never sit here and defend baby killers. And yet you are. You're taking the long route to defend baby killers. Trump says Netanyahu will not go into Beirut. Yeah, that doesn't mean shit. It's Joe Biden 2.0 over here. This does not correspond with what I've been hearing, which is more that Iran is threatening to suspend talks over Israel's attacks in Lebanon, but has not yet done so. Iran says breaking off talks to end the war after U.S. and Israeli strikes. I've told you, Iran has to reestablish military deterrence. The cool down period has allowed Israel to claim that Iran is scared. So that's it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I spoke with President Trump this evening and told him that if Hezbollah does not stop attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut. Our position remains the same. At the same time, IDF will continue to operate as planned in southern Lebanon. Trump reins in Netanyahu over Lebanon after Iran threatens to quit talks. So is Netanyahu now openly boasting to the world he doesn't care what the president of the United States thinks or says? Well, Piers, he clearly didn't care when it was Joe Biden. And why should he care if it's Donald Trump? Donald Trump eats Benjamin Netanyahu's dick for breakfast every morning. Why the fuck would he care? We've never reined Israel in since the first Trump administration. So we've taught them that they can do this without accountability. Why? Why should he do something different? Trump on the push and pull. He's hearing that I should move faster or move slower, or go to war or not go to war with Iran. Iran really wants to make a deal, and it will be a good one for the USA and those that are with us. But don't the Democrats and very seemingly unpatriotic Republicans understand that it is much tougher for me to properly do my job and negotiate when political hacks keep negatively chirping at levels never seen before over and over again that I should move faster or move slower or go to war or not go to war or whatever. Just sit back and relax. It will all work out well in the end. It always does. He's such a fucking idiot, dude. Yeah, Gregory Brew, senior analyst for Iran and oil at Eurasia Group, says, for what it's worth, markets turning red and Brent climbing on headlines from Iran state media that contain a bunch of threats on what might happen if there's no new ceasefire in Lebanon is a good illustration of why Iran is trying to get a new ceasefire in Lebanon. If you have leverage, why not use it? The problem is America acts as though it doesn't have any responsibility here whatsoever. America is the principal negotiator on the other side. All it needs to do is restrain Israel, but they can't for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Iranian state TV releasing this video as the country says it launched missiles at U.S. military forces. This morning, U.S. Central Command confirming they successfully intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles targeting American forces based in Kuwait, amid growing uncertainty over a peace deal. The president sitting down for an interview with his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump.
We're getting what we want slowly. Very tough negotiators. It takes a long time. I'm in no hurry.
Sources tell ABC News President Trump sent Iran changes to a proposed framework for the country to consider. But just a week ago, the president said the deal was already largely negotiated. President Trump laying out the terms of the potential agreement, saying Iran must agree to never obtain a nuclear weapon, turn over its remaining enriched uranium, and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump spent the weekend on the golf course, largely out of sight. On Friday, he huddled with top national security advisors in the Situation Room for 2 hours, saying he would make a final determination on a framework to extend the ceasefire and gradually reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This morning, Iranian state media is reporting the country's top officials are reviewing the president's proposals. The country's top negotiator casting doubt on how quickly a deal could come together, reportedly saying, quote, "Do not trust the enemy's words and promises." Complicating negotiations, Iran's insistence that the war end on all fronts, including Israel's massive ground operation in Lebanon. Israel now pushing further into the country than they have in 26 years as they fight Iranian-backed Hezbollah. Capturing Beaufort Castle, nestled on a strategic mountaintop, the Israeli flag now flying above its walls. Israeli strikes have devastated Lebanon. The country's health ministry says more than 3,400 people have been killed since March, with over 10,000 wounded.
The head of the National Security Commission for the Iranian parliament says if the attacks against Lebanon are not completely halted, dark days await the Zionist regime and the American forces in the region. They themselves know full well that is not a threat. Our fingers are on the trigger. Israel destroys everything, dude. It destroys everything. It doesn't give a shit. The only way to restrain Israel is you have to punish Israel. That's it. And the only way to punish Israel is by forcing America's hand to punish Israel. There's no other way to do it. America is the most powerful country on the planet still. Obviously, its power has diminished quite a bit. But the only time the Iranian government has ever gotten any gains, any leverage, is when they fought for it militarily. So the idea that their peaceful strategic restraint method that they're going back to right now is going to somehow succeed is bunk. It's not working.
And of course, the economic toll continues to hit Americans here at home with these high gas prices. But the president still insists he is in no rush to make a deal. Late overnight, he posted on social media.
Fuck you. All right, chatter.
Telling critics to sit back and relax, saying it will all work out in the end, George.
And Rachel, the president faced two major legal setbacks over the weekend to his takeover of the Kennedy Center and that fund to pay off his political allies.
Yeah, two major
Dude, tying your horse to the Trump wagon or Israel is so funny to me. Like you are not going to look good. Like what makes you think? What makes you think that you are in any way, shape, or form going to look good? You're fucked. Embarrassing for you to do this, especially now.
Setbacks in the course of just 24 hours. So let's start with that so-called anti-weaponization fund, that $1.8 billion that could pave the way for even those who were convicted on January 6th of beating police officers to receive payouts. Well, a judge ruling that not a single dollar could be handed out until further legal deliberations over whether or not this is in fact legal. Then just hours later, the president suffered yet another setback. A judge in a different jurisdiction ruling that neither the president nor his hand-picked board had the authority to rename the Kennedy Center. That judge now giving the Trump administration 14 days to take down the president's name from that building, insisting Congress gave the Kennedy Center its name and only Congress can remove it, George.
Rachel Scott, thanks very much.
President Trump has been speaking to U.S. media about the state of the talks with Iran. Let's go live to our chief U.S. correspondent, Alan Fisher, who's at the White House. So President Trump giving interviews in the last few hours. What more can you tell us about what we've learned from what he's had to say?
Well, none of these interviews are on camera, but Donald Trump has been saying that he hasn't heard any confirmation that the Iranians are no longer going to continue negotiations with the United States side. Of course, that has been reported by the semi-official agency in Iran. What he did say is he thinks they have been talking too much and a period of silence might not be a bad thing. He's also said just in the last few minutes that he doesn't care if negotiations with Iran are over, and also he doesn't worry about the cost of oil. Now, what is interesting is since these reports started circulating, the futures prices of oil has soared dramatically, up over the $100 mark. It was less than that when the markets opened on Monday. And at least one CEO has said that there is the possibility that because of the lack of stock that they have, that the price of oil may go as high as $150, $160 a barrel. That would obviously have huge economic implications. Now, it's been reported by an Israeli TV channel that Donald Trump has been in a telephone conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu in the last hour. No confirmation from the White House side on that. But what we do know is that this isn't just a negotiation between the United States and the Iranians. We saw that a few weeks ago when Donald Trump said he was an hour away from ordering the restart of the war with Iran, but it was the intervention of the GCC nations, the Gulf Cooperation Council nations, that actually urged him to continue with negotiation. So there may be a breakdown at the moment in negotiations. Of course, there have been incidents between the United States and Iran militarily in the last week or so, and so we're in a state of hold to a degree, as we have been over the last couple of weeks, that we don't know whether negotiations are going forward and we don't know whether Donald Trump is about to restart the war. But what he said, just to recap, in the last hour, that he thinks they have been talking too much and a period of silence with the Iranians might not be a bad thing.
Okay, thank you for that. Our chief U.S. correspondent, Alan Fisher, there at the White House.
With President Trump, what can you tell us?
Kelly, that's right. I called President Trump a short time ago, and he picked up to talk about the negotiations over the weekend with the Iranians. We had this report at the top of the day today that the Iranians were actually breaking off negotiations with the United States. That moved oil markets, and so that's what I asked the president about. I said, do you think the negotiations are over now, or is this a bluff by the Iranians? The president said, I don't care if they're over, honestly. I really don't care. I couldn't care less. If they're over, they're over. If they're not, you know, I think they took too much time. Frank.
Bro, this is the American president, bro. This is the American president. This is the American president. This is who's leading the country. And what's even more nutty is that the overwhelming majority of Americans that have supported Trump in the past simply don't give a shit. Or if they actually care enough to learn about what's going on, support it. What do we do? 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 How can we, like, what can we do? And when you speak out against it, the government says you need to shut the fuck up. I don't know, man. Truly a horrifying state of affairs.
Frankly, I think they started to get a little boring. The president said he thinks that the Iranian side was tapping us along, that is, that they were stalling for time. Ultimately, on oil prices, the president was confident that he said oil will be dropping like a rock. He said, ultimately, if the Iranians want to try and have a nuclear weapon, I will blow them up to kingdom come. He said what this is all about for him is a strongly held conviction that the Iranians should not ever be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and that American voters will tolerate higher gas prices as long as they know what the goal is here. I also asked him about Netanyahu and the Israelis. I asked, it seems to be that the Iranians are saying they're not going to negotiate until Israel stops attacking in Lebanon. Have you talked to Netanyahu about it? I asked the president. He said, this is about 40 minutes ago, he said, no, but I'm going to ask him what's going on with Lebanon. They've been fighting for a long time.
Sounds like the Israeli leadership was so caught off guard by Hezbollah's fire yesterday, they called in Rubio to stop it. By this point, Hezbollah was firing at least 1 to 2 salvos an hour and extended their range down to Nahariya, Acre, Safed, and Tiberias. Haifa was going to be next. MP Hasan Fadlallah to Al Mayadeen says, yesterday there was an attempt by the U.S. Secretary of State to promote a new formula, no bombing the suburbs in exchange for no bombing in the north, without committing to a comprehensive ceasefire. Oh, so the tit for tat between Hezbollah and Israel doesn't work that way when Hezbollah is also bombing back. What's the lesson that you teach all of the resistance in the group, in the region? The lesson that you teach is you have to fight back militarily. That's literally what Israel is saying to everyone, okay, over and over again. If you don't fight back militarily, Israel will continue to pounce and will continue to kill civilians and will continue to destroy civilian buildings. Yeah, Hezbollah just fired 5 rockets into Metula, and Israeli channels are losing their minds already. We have been informed by the President of the Republic that President Trump contacted Lebanese ambassador and requested a halt to the mutual attacks as a prelude to a comprehensive ceasefire. This matter is being followed up, and communication with the President of the Republic on this issue is ongoing. We will not accept a return to the situation before March 2nd. And then people turn around and go, wow, dude, you can't, how could you ever say anything positive about Hezbollah? How could you understand why the Lebanese population would rise up in arms and fight back against Israel? I don't know, because I've seen Israel kill too many fucking children, okay? They're baby killers. What are you supposed to do? Not fucking fight back? What are you, insane? Even if Hezbollah dropped its arms tomorrow, Israel would just move further into Lebanon, as they have done so in the past. Same goes for the Palestinian resistance in its entirety. Nobody wants this. The Lebanese population doesn't want this. The rest of the world doesn't want this. Iran doesn't want this. Only Israel wants this. Some in America don't want this either. Many in America don't want this either. But even in the American administration, they're saying this is ridiculous. This has gone on for far too long. Hasan, can you react to a critique of you? Is Hasan Piker's a Fed on YouTube? I would rather turn on a video game and fucking kill myself than watch some random ultra claiming that I'm a fucking federal agent while I'm literally in the process of being prosecuted by the federal government, you fucking moron. So no, I'm not going to be doing that. Okay? Sometimes Not all critique is constructive. Sometimes the person engaging in critique is actually a schizophrenic weirdo who might have actually been paid by the fucking Israeli state, as a matter of fact, to engage in this sort of critique, to suck up as many dumb fucks like you to think, well, I think I'm entertaining this idiotic conspiracy theory. Are you fucking stupid? We're over here in the process of discussing Israel violating the ceasefire with regular frequency. Just wanted to see your reaction. Okay, here's my reaction. You're a fucking idiot, okay? Stop distracting. We're over here having a conversation about Israel doing death and destruction campaigns in Lebanon, and this guy's like, I want you to watch this fucking schizophrenic communoid who fucking posted to 35 people. I happen to be one of the people in the algorithm. You should watch this video. Fuck.
Now, since our call, just in the past couple of minutes, we've seen a report on Reuters that crossed the wires a short time ago, suggesting that the president has now called Netanyahu to discuss that. But at the time that he and I spoke, he suggested that, in fact, they had not talked yet. So then I asked him, what is the end game here?
The gaudy bullshit behind the White House is the new UFC hall that they're designing, that they're putting up.
In terms of the Strait of Hormuz, how ultimately are we going to get out of the situation that we're in? The president said he thinks that NATO should come in and help the United States out. He said they're the ones. He said, we don't use the strait. We don't need it. We have a lot of oil. And I said, have you talked to anybody at NATO about that? Have they changed their tune on coming in to help the United States in the strait? He said they would if I wanted to, but we don't need them. We don't need NATO. They were very weak and very sad. And the last thing I would leave you with is this idea of where we go from here. I asked the president, when all this is over, how do you bring this to an end if negotiations are not happening and the ceasefire is in place? I asked him, is it time to end the ceasefire? And the president said, we'll see. Let's say I knew exactly what...
Someone said, wait, I'm autistic. Is that actually a UFC thing? Yes. Yes. I'm not joking. Yes, that is a Superdome that they're building in front of the fucking front lawn of the White House to put a UFC fight under it. Yes, the United States of America is literally living through the idiocracy period. This is some real President Camacho shit, dude.
You know what you're asking me to do, and I sort of do know it. Why would I tell you? So the president there suggesting that he does have a plan that he's not going to talk to the media about, naturally, to end this situation. But clearly, the president suggesting that he doesn't care that negotiations have wound down with the Iranians. And he thought that the Iranians stringing the U.S. along in the first place and that those negotiations took too long. So there you have the U.S. response, Kelly, to what we saw this morning from the Iranian side saying that they were breaking off negotiations. Back over to you.
Day 94 in the war in Iran, and we can see fresh tensions now rising between Israel and Lebanon as Benjamin Netanyahu issues fresh orders for the Israeli forces to begin targeting southern Beirut suburbs housing critical Hezbollah infrastructure. Now, we can see here over the last few weeks, Israel have been conducting limited and targeted specific attacks from northern Israel into southern Lebanon, targeting the Hezbollah infrastructure, which is attacking northern Israeli settlements. But in the last few days, we've really seen an uptick in this Israeli advance, and we can see now the Israeli government are making preparations to potentially go as far north as the Zerani River. Now, up till now, the Litani River has been the vital ground, if you like, for the Israelis, giving them a 20 to 30 kilometre buffer zone and that front to target Hezbollah forces. And rather dramatically this weekend, that included the seizure of Beaufort Castle and the ridge that it commands, offering strategic views out to the rest of southern Lebanon. Now, if we just look for a comparison, this grey line at the top, this grey box, that denotes the extent of the Israeli military operation from 1985 to 2000, where they held that ground fighting against the PLA and the PLO. So given that history, people are understandably sceptical that this will be over in a matter of days or weeks, and rather it's going to be part of a much broader long-term Israeli military campaign. Now, again, just looking at this in a little bit more detail, we can see the Litani River here and Beaufort Castle, and really the ability now for the Israelis to sweep down the plain from the high ground and seize Nabatea, this crucial Lebanese city, hosting not just civilians and a large civilian population, but also Hezbollah infrastructure. From here, they can easily then sweep just from the northern suburbs and reach the Zerani River, giving them that 40-kilometre strategic front. Now, this grey area here denotes the evacuation zone which the Israelis have already publicly announced for the Lebanese in this area, who are already pulling out in scenes of relative chaos and confusion, not really knowing where the Israelis are going to be coming from. Going to the next slide ever so briefly, we can see here the Beaufort Castle and the strategic views. Now, having been in this area extensively myself and knowing the ground, this will give the Israelis that enormous strategic front going forwards, that really commanding position. Now, this is all part of the US-Iran shadow war and shadow diplomacy, where each are trying to seek greater leverage or exert that greater leverage on the other force going forwards. Now, longer term, this will likely cause some form of split or rift in Israeli and American policy, as the Americans are understandably wanting to pull out quite short term, and the Israelis really now want to press home this advantage against Hezbollah. Longer term as well, we can tell that any long-term ceasefire or peace negotiation, particularly from the Iranian perspective, will intrinsically cover Lebanon. Now, in this shadow war and this shadow diplomacy between America and Iran, we've also seen in the last 7 days, particularly this weekend, an increase, an uptick, if you like, in the direct strikes between the two, which has really been an increased source of tension in the last 24 hours. Now, it in no way represents a return to a full conflict that we saw pre-April the 8th ceasefire, but what these tit-for-tat strikes against American bases and Iranian launch facilities, what that does do is completely undermine confidence from either party going forwards, and crucially erode that sense of good faith and goodwill going into much more meaningful negotiations down the line, particularly on the Iranian nuclear enrichment program. Now, Donald Trump is keen to wrap this up in a matter of days.
Yeah, it's who's ruining the deal, man? Who's ruining the fucking ceasefire? Israel's announcement that it intends to renew its terror bombing of Beirut is not really about Hezbollah or even Lebanon. Israel believes, I think correctly, that Iran will view such attacks as an unacceptable violation of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire and respond accordingly. Israel hopes that this will in turn produce a renewal of full-scale U.S.-Iranian hostilities and successfully derail diplomacy. Israeli assumptions are likely to be vindicated. Very likely, but not certainly. There's only one way to stop this from happening, and that is the United States of America. The United States of America can just turn around and say, Israel, what the fuck are you doing? You're done. But they won't do it. So the only other alternative here is for Iran to reestablish military deterrence and start its bombing campaign, which will come at a great cost to the Iranian citizens as well, because America and Israel will come back and start blowing up civilian power plants, bridges, roads, railroads, as they have done so. That is the goal here. The Israeli goal here is to eat away as much damage as possible, knowing full well that America is going to defend Israel no matter what. Israel can get away with it because Israel knows America will spend every fucking dollar they have in the bank to defend the Israeli population as a whole and the Israeli government as a whole. So the only alternative here is to win militarily, as they've done so thus far, to establish military deterrence. What is happening? This guy is still trying to argue with people. Okay, here, just take an hour off, chatter, okay? This is not like epic Fortnite debate Chungus time for you, okay? Enough.
But we can see from this, all sides have very different strategic outcomes, and none of them are really compatible with one another.
We begin this hour in the Middle East and the dimming hopes of a peace deal between the U.S. and Iran. The two sides exchanged a new round of strikes.
Yeah, even if Hezbollah were to fully dissolve its military wing, and withdraw entirely from the Lebanese political life tomorrow, the historical and strategic record offers little confidence that Israeli forces will withdraw from occupied Lebanese territory. If anything, the current operation tempo suggests the opposite trajectory. Dylan Saba takes a quote from this analysis. Historically, buffer zones do not remain buffer zones. They become frontiers, and frontiers in the logic of states that have internalized expansion as security generate the justification for the next buffer. This is the Greater Israel Project in motion. This is what Israel has done always. The only time Israel has ever retreated from the Greater Israel Project is when it was forced to by the United States of America, or defeated militarily, or incurred too much penalty. That's what Israel is doing currently. This is not a question of Hezbollah's merits or failures. That judgment belongs exclusively to the Lebanese people, who bear the cost of that answer in blood and infrastructure. The question is one of strategic intent, and intent is honestly read through behavior rather than stated justification. Okay? This is analyst Hamza Attar. What we are witnessing is Israel, for the first time in its history, operating as the unchallenged regional superpower, doing so with unprecedented latitude granted by Washington. That combination of capability and political cover is not being conserved, it's being spent. The logic of the current campaign, stripped of its reactive framing, points towards a deliberate restructuring of Israel's strategic environment. Two fronts have been the priority, Lebanon and Syria. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has been degraded to a degree that would have seemed implausible 3 years ago. In Syria, Israeli strikes have been so systematic and so comprehensive in targeting military infrastructure that what remains of Syrian conventional capability is negligible. These are not defensive operations. They are the deliberate elimination of the last organized military architecture on Israel's northern and northeastern flanks. This brings us to two remaining fronts, Egypt and Jordan. Both maintain functioning armies, both share borders with Israel, and both represent the final serious military actors within Israel's natural expansion sphere. He's talking about the Greater Israel Project, something that Mike Huckabee has defended when talking to Tucker Carlson. Neither is under immediate threat of direct confrontation. They don't need to be. The strategy doesn't require kinetics against Cairo or Amman. It requires geometry, the progressive elimination of the coalition depth, the strategic alternatives, and the deterrent architecture that gave both countries leverage. That is, of course, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Shia militias in Iraq, and the IRGC in Iran. Once those guys are gone, Israel can move to any country it wants to and do exactly what it's been doing. With Hezbollah weakened, Syria militarily hollowed out, and the Palestinian question being foreclosed rather than resolved, Egypt and Jordan will find themselves facing Israel without the strategic weight that previously balanced the relationship. Historically, buffer zones do not remain buffers. They become frontiers, and frontiers in the logic of states that have internalized expansion as security generate the justification for the next buffer. No, this is not AI. Not every instance of juxtaposition is AI, is an indication that it's AI. I don't think it is AI.
Overnight, after weeks of provoking each other, the U.S. targeting drone and radar sites in southern Iran. In response, Iran fired a barrage of ballistic missiles at American troops in Kuwait. The Pentagon says all the missiles were intercepted and no U.S. troops were hurt. This morning, Iranian state media reported the regime has suspended talks with the U.S. to protest Israel's deepening offensive in Lebanon. But President Trump posted later on social media that talks with the regime are continuing, quote, at a rapid pace. Joining us now, NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel in Tel Aviv, Israel, and NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, we'll start with you. There has been a lot of different information coming out of the White House from President Trump. He's done a series of interviews. What do we know at this hour?
Yeah, and you're right to point that out, Kate, because it is painting a little bit of a confusing picture over the last few days. We've heard from the administration that they are very close to this potential tentative framework that we thought the president was reviewing. He said himself publicly that he was going to be making a final determination on that in a Situation Room meeting on Friday. Then over the weekend, it seems like that was not what was going to actually take place, that the president was seeking to refine some of the terms there. And then today he spoke to our own colleague, Garrett Haake, and responded to reports reports that Iranian negotiators had walked away from the table, saying that he was okay with that, that in fact the negotiations could be stalled, that the U.S. could wait Iran out for an undetermined amount of time, and that he wasn't too concerned with that. But he also put that into the context of saying that it didn't mean that the U.S. was going to go and, quote, start dropping bombs again necessarily, that in fact, again, he could just wait and see how this played out. But as you pointed out in the introduction, the president also mentioned a short time ago that the negotiations are still underway, and he says that they're taking place at a rapid pace. Though, Kate, we have seen that kind of language before, where it's the president who says we could be close to some kind of diplomatic breakthrough, only for that not to be the case in reality.
Yeah, multiple times, I would say. Monica, thank you. Richard, let me bring you in. The U.S. and Iran trading more strikes overnight, as we said. What can you tell us about those?
So those strikes are only part of the story. There is the diplomatic piece you were just talking about, where President Trump says that it's okay if talks are stalled, and then moments later says that talks are ongoing. There were the new clashes that took place overnight and earlier this morning, with the U.S. attacking command and control sites, radar stations in Iran, on an island, and on the mainland. Iran firing 2 ballistic missiles at U.S. forces based in Kuwait. Those being shot down by American air defense systems.
This guy practically lives in Tel Aviv? No, he literally does now. All of the top foreign policy correspondents now basically just live in Tel Aviv.
Of this escalation, there was also the Israeli factor, with Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that he was about to, and he had put this out in a statement earlier today, escalate the war in Lebanon. And Israeli troops have been advancing in southern Lebanon over the last few days, capturing a strategic castle. And also, Prime Minister Netanyahu threatened to bomb South Beirut, a neighborhood called Dahye, which has long been a Hezbollah stronghold. The strikes, however, didn't take place. All day we were watching to see if there would suddenly be explosions all across Dahye, and many people in Beirut were also nervous that they were imminently coming. And President Trump, a short while ago, said that he has spoken with Netanyahu and that Hezbollah has agreed to a ceasefire. Now, in theory, there is already a ceasefire in place in Lebanon, but it hasn't been holding. And a member of Hezbollah, a member of parliament in Lebanon, said that the group has committed to a full ceasefire on Lebanese territory, that Israelis and the Hezbollah militia will stop shooting at each other. So we do seem to be moving 1 step forward, 2 steps backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. And it is very hard to know if we are heading more toward war or heading more toward peace. On the Iranian front, things are not looking good, with the negotiations, if not completely frozen, certainly stalled on this issue of Lebanon.
There's no steps forward. It's all backwards. I mean, I don't know. Trita says it's going good. I'm having a hard time comprehending that, but I trust his analysis. I trust his resources, but it doesn't seem to me like it's going good at all. So the ceasefire equation is Israel can continue to occupy parts of Lebanon as long as it doesn't push too far north, and Hezbollah can continue to shoot at Israeli troops as long as they're inside of Lebanon. Yeah. That's the new version, the new iteration. Yes, guys, I saw Sid Rosenberg looks insane, okay?
My advice is to be strong. I don't like it when I see Jewish people, moms and dads, they tell their kids, you can take your yarmulke off. Take it off. If you're nervous to walk in the streets.
I've never seen someone look this purple before. I know that it's like a filter as well, obviously, but like no human should look the color of my fucking suit jacket at any point. Okay? Motherfucker looks like Thanos, bro. How is that possible? How is that even remotely possible for a human being? He's purple for an amazing reason, dude.
Take a yarmulke off. I can't stand that. Or hide your Mogen David. You do that, they win. They'd almost rather see that than a dead body in the street of Tel Aviv. Trust me, okay? Don't do that. Don't tell your kids. I know you're a parent. You're nervous. I'm nervous. I'm nervous too, okay? I've got a son who goes to school in Chelsea. It's not easy. And my daughter.
How can you say that sincerely? I got a son that goes to school in Chelsea. Chelsea, the place where Jews are under attack. Oh my God.
Daughter just came back from London. You want to talk about a rough place for 3 years. But when you do that, you're really doing a disservice to the Jewish people fighting for us in Israel, and all of you fine people in the audience here today. Do not do that. Wear your yarmulke proudly, wear your chai proudly, and show everybody that you're Jewish. And I got to say, to quote from the great movie Goodfellas, if you get your ass kicked once in a while, so what? Everybody needs a good ass kicking once in a while, right? But it's okay. You'll go to bed that night a proud Jew. Don't hide the fact that you're Jewish. Flaunt it.
Looks like blood sausage. That's blood libel. Trope maxing. Octopus who wished to be a man. I've never seen this color before. Not on a person, not in nature, not in a paint store, not anywhere. Congrats. Is he doing blackface? No, he's doing purple face, which I didn't even know was a type of face that human beings were capable of doing.